Doctor, he's flatlining.
Injector.
What up, YouTube? Shredded Otaku here. Long time no see. And today we're going to be talking about the Callisto Protocol, why I think it's a pretty good game despite its flaws, why it might not be worth $70, but why I still ended up enjoying it regardless. Now, I guess I would say that I don't think this video is going to get a lot of views. It's well past the hype, and it's really just something I'm doing for my own personal reasons. I said I was going to talk about this game on the channel here, so that's what I'm doing. But if you do like videos like this, if you are new here, every YouTuber has to say this, but if you'd like to see this channel grow with me, or if you just like to be a part of this growing community we've got going on, if you like the setup, whatever it might be, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Love to have you here. But let's get right into it, guys. Now, right away, I'm not going to go into spoilers. Never something I want to do on this channel. I'm not going to get too much into the story other than the initial plot and setup. But I am going to talk about the mechanics and how I feel about the game as a whole, if you will. And then I'm going to transition into what I kind of turned this game experience into and how I rationalized it as a $70 purchase. So let's get started. Right away, guys, I think we all went into this game, or those of us that know what this game even is, I was kind of surprised at how much hype I saw in the horror community around this game and how many regular gamers were just like, Callisto, what? So you might have never heard of this game, but it was actually done as a spiritual successor to a game called Dead Space, which was a space horror game done in the vein of Resident Evil 4. Back in the early 2000s, when the survival horror franchise was kind of transitioning from the old school Silent Hill, Resident Evil type games into the over-the-shoulder, third-person perspective of horror that we see today in a lot of titles, it was like a very new, groundbreaking thing. Resident Evil 4 was obviously the first one to do this, and then alongside of that, a little bit later, on the Xbox 360, PS3, we got Dead Space. Dead Space was a phenomenal game that had 3 titles that served as a trilogy. Now, a lot of people feel a little bit wishy-washy about the third entry of that series, but the first Dead Space was iconic. And the setting, I mean, space, horror, just everything, sci-fi, gnarly, cool about it. Like, it's a fan favorite. It's a cult classic, if you will. So years have gone by. That initial crew of developers disbanded, and they got back together to develop the Callisto Protocol. It was talked about for years, super hyped. I'll be perfectly honest, I stayed away from all previews, trailers, and all I really did was talk with other people, like the guys that work at GameStop, because I'm that dude that goes into GameStop and talks to people. Even though it's 2022, I still really value face-to-face human interactions. But just based on what I'd heard, how much effort and care was going into this game, I really thought that it was going to redefine the survival horror genre in some way or another. It just seemed like a sleeper hit to me. Now, I will say my expectations were not quite met. Spoiler alert. But there's a lot of reasons for that. And I don't want to drag this on too much because so many people have talked about this game already. If you've seen any reviews or you were questioning whether or not you wanted to buy this title, I think your opinion's probably already been formed. But right away, you get dropped into the setting of the Callisto Protocol, which is like you're some type of... Here's the thing. There's so little of a setup. There's so little character development going into the game that you really don't... I, at least, didn't understand what was going on. Like, I didn't read about the game beforehand. I just kind of went in. And on one hand, when games do this, it's kind of nice because nowadays we get these massive cinematic experiences that sometimes you just want to get into and then like enjoy the game. You're like, where's the action, bro? And this game definitely doesn't do that to you. It just drops you right in and just throws you, the trigger. But because of that, I didn't at least feel invested or really understand. I was a little confused as to what the hell was going on. You kind of just, you're in a spaceship, you're doing a job, things in the job are not going according to plan, and you seem kind of like a sketchy dude, and some stuff goes wrong, and your buddy dies, and all of a sudden, you're in space jail. Literally, like the first 20 minutes of the game, that's where you're at, bro. Like, you're in space jail now. Your life is like pretty much over. It didn't seem like your life was that great up until that point anyway, so you kind of have this fatalistic perspective. It's pretty dark. It's a very dark game, and I like that. But again, like, I didn't care about this character. I didn't care that this guy died in front of me. Like, I didn't care. Like, it was shock value. It was cool, especially since I've been playing so many wholesome kiddie games of late. You know, I definitely am more of a person that gravitates towards things that are just fun and friendly as an adult, because I think that, you know, spending too much time in the Call of Duty or super gnarly adult genre of video games is just not very good for your mental health. But I do love horror, so I always set aside some time to get gross and gnarly with a good horror game. But I didn't care what was happening. I didn't care at all. I was just like, this is cool. Okay, we're doing this. So right away, I just kind of felt like I was thrown in this world that was badass, but also...
What the fuck is going on? I don't know what the hell's going on.
Now, going forward, enough of the rant about the plot and setup. I don't want to get too much more into the story, but I will say the mechanics of the game also kind of dragged me down. Right away, playing the game, your character feels like he weighs 10,000 pounds for no reason. Like, I can't really articulate or describe well to you what that means, but first of all, like, I've been playing a ton of third-person survival horror games my entire life, ever since Resident Evil 4 was a thing. So the fact that you can move in that direction and not quickly turn around, like, I don't know if you know this, but like, anyone that's played a survival horror game, anyone that's played Resident Evil or any third-person game, there's usually like a quick turn option where like you see something and you can just right away be like, Burp. There's none of that here. If there's something behind you, if there's something going on, if you just want to look at something around, like, your field of view is pretty limited, and the way that you're going to look at something it just feels cumbersome. It feels kind of gross. Not only that, but it really feels like that wasn't taken into consideration when doing the testing for how you fight enemies. Like, you fight one enemy, and it feels very immersive and cool and just like visceral. The dodging mechanic with the joysticks is done very well. But then you fight two enemies, and you're kind of like, whoa, this is a lot here, right? Like, it almost seems like it's too much. Even though these are like very low level or just base kind of enemies, you can tell right away, like, there's going to be more to come. But you're still kind of feeling like a way too underpowered, like, right off the bat. Then they start throwing 3-4 enemies. It gets overwhelming right away because you weigh 10,000 pounds. So you're just kind of like stuck in this very robotic type of movement. And I didn't like that. Now, because of that, and because of these very stark, just awfully... I always hate to be such a downer, but the difficulty spikes in this game are so severe that you kind of just feel, again, overwhelmed and underpowered to the point where it doesn't feel like survival horror. It just feels like poor game design. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Now, I'm a person that takes a lot of pride in playing these sorts of games on the hardest difficulty that I possibly can. I recently replayed Resident Evil 8 on hardcore. No, I didn't do the Nightmare or the Village of Shadows difficulty. That to me is still too much. I have a full-time job nowadays. I can't do that. But I did play games like The Witcher 3 on Death March. I played all of the Halo series on Legendary. I've always kind of been that guy. Callisto Protocol broke my pride because I just felt annoyed. Like, every enemy encounter that was remotely just meant to be a challenge had me feeling like... I hate you. And to me, I had to take a step back and look at that and go, am I really having fun, or am I just doing this for the sake of my pride? So eventually I turned down the difficulty, and I'm now playing on what is known as minimum security. I did a Google search. This is the kind of gamer I am. I did a Google search, is the Callisto Protocol too hard? And I saw an entire article of people describing how the easy difficulty is really the more suitable difficulty for the first run, so I felt better about doing this. But it still hurt my pride. So I played through the game on the minimum security, and I feel like that's a good way to do it. That said, minimum security is just a tad too easy. If there was like a middle ground between minimum and standard, I think that would have been the sweet spot for this game. I mean, but overall, like the character, the moveset you have, the weapons that you acquire versus the types of enemies, and again, just your field of movement, just it's very unbalanced. It's just not great. And considering the fact that these are the same people that created Dead Space, like I'm just kind of in awe that they didn't do a better job at that. Like you would think that with a game like this that has such minimum emphasis on story, they would have put way more care into the combat. And they didn't. Not only that, but, and once again, guys, hate to bum you out if you thought this was going to be a hype video. Like, I'm always going to be brutally honest when it comes to my games. But if you stay tuned, there is some goodness in this, so don't worry. But like the weapons you get even, they're not that cool either. You know, it's very limited. And once you start upgrading them, you get this sense of like, oh, okay, there's something. Moving things around with telekinesis is one thing that I enjoy immensely. So that part was cool. Ever since the PS2 era, I've really just valued being able to play with physics mechanics in video games when that started to become a thing. But outside of that, not a lot going on there, guys. I'm going to be perfectly honest, and I guess at this point I feel like I've talked enough about the game itself to say that at a $70 price point, guys, like I played this game, so you don't have to. And I hate to say that, but I really do think if this was like a $50 title that was, meant to just be upfront and honest and say like, look, here's what we're doing. We're holding back a lot of things because we're also in cahoots with the people that are making Dead Space. That's what I feel like was going on here. I feel like they kind of had to hold back a little bit because Dead Space is coming out, next month? So, I mean, in hindsight, like, those guys had to have communicated. Like, yes, there's different people working on the games, obviously, but like, they knew what was going on. And I don't think that they really wanted to release a game that was going to redefine the genre right before re-releasing a game that already did that. So I think a lot of this game was just kind of meant to, I don't know, almost be like a teaser for what they're gonna do next, which is Dead Space Remake. At $50, if you find this game on sale for $40 down the road, awesome game. Like it's got a really cool vibe to it. Space jail with zombie things is pretty cool, all things considering, and the grittiness of it is pretty cool. I said cool way too many times, but I just, maybe that's because like I'm kind of at a loss as to what else to say other than, okay, so there's two things. There's two other things that I will say really did impress me, and that is the graphical power of this game. Even though it wasn't developed exclusively for next-gen consoles, it really does push the boundaries of what these consoles can do, or at least what they've done so far. It is still working on the Unreal Engine 4, and you see some limits there. There's some stuttering, etc. But like, it looks amazing. It looks like the game itself looks like what I want survival horror to be going forward. It's incredibly cinematic. It's incredibly immersive. Everything looks great on the screen. Just when you're looking around at stuff, like it's there. It's what you kind of imagined this generation to be, or at least what I imagined this generation to be 2 years ago. And now we're finally starting to see that. Also, the sound design is really great. Like the 3D audio that's done in this game is very, very immersive as well. The only thing about that, because there is a caveat, is that the voices in the game are not, I don't know what they were doing other than trying their very best to make the 3D audio feel more immersive than it needed to be, because like in a situation where you normally wouldn't be able to hear someone, like there's a lot of moving objects, there's a lot of things going on, you legitimately just can't hear them, which is not something that you want in a video game. There was a lot of moments where I was just kind of like,
What, say what now?
and that's not a good feeling. At one point I turned on subtitles, but I ended up turning them off again just because that always, to me, feels like it kind of takes away from the cinematic experience. So yeah, good, bad, mostly bad. And I hate to say that. Now that I'm done with my rant, the opinion of the game itself, I'd like to talk about why I still enjoyed it and why I still am going to probably replay this game. And it is also the same reason why I haven't really been making a whole lot of videos and why this video is so late to be put up. So I don't want to overshare here, but I experienced some things in my life recently that utterly changed the way I view everything. My world as I knew it was kind of ripped apart. And that's me being extremely dramatic. But, and I, again, like I don't, it's so hard to say that and not feel guilty because it's like, dude, what happened? But sometimes in life, there's just things that happen that really can't be explained. And they hurt us. And a lot of times it's the ideas around the situations that hurt us more than the situation themselves. But long story short, I was really at one of the lowest points I think I've ever been. And I didn't show it, at least to the people that I know. And the people that I know personally, coworkers, friends, etc., that watch my channel, I'd like to first and foremost thank you so much for being there for me. Because again, even though I didn't show how bad I was feeling, I was in a very, very dark place. And honestly, like the words that you guys said to me, even the comments that I got here on this channel, they really just, they made it, I don't want to say like they saved me because I would have been okay. But they really made it livable, that period of my life. As short as it was, now that I feel like I've processed all of it, it was very, very hard and it was very dark. That being said, if you're still watching this video and you came here based on something like Pokemon that I've talked about and you're sensitive to certain topics, feel free to turn this video off now. I don't want to trigger anyone or anything like that. And I'm not going to overshare. But if we go back a decade, I'm like nervously picking up this because I don't know how to put this into words really. And I do freestyle on my videos, so there's no script involved in this. But if we go back 10 years, I was a very different person. This wholesome vibe you see before you, if you've been watching this channel, the person you see before you was very different 10 years ago. I had a very colorful childhood that led me into an adolescent phase that was very, very dark. And I've honestly, I ended up finding myself in some situations that were not completely unlike the character here in Callisto Protocol, in the sense where I made some really bad mistakes and my autonomy was stripped away from me. I've never been to space prison, but I've been to some places that were not far from that vibe. So as I was going through this very dark time in my life, I booted this game up and I walked around and I felt that vibe and I felt this character's pain, even though, like I said, I didn't care about the character himself. I personalized a lot of it, and it really reminded me in a very weird way where I've been and how far I've come. And that sounds so weird, and it is weird. I'm a poet and an artist at heart, so I have a tendency to personalize and turn things into analogies and metaphors in my head. I apologize if that seems odd to you. To me, it's not. It's like a coping skill, if you will. But walking through this, I realized that as dark as of a place I was in mentally, I had already survived my own Callisto Protocol. And I knew that I was going to survive it again. I knew that there was nothing that could put me back in that mental space. No matter how hard things get in my life in general, as far as I've come from that, I know that I've changed enough about myself to where I'm able to handle things in a very different way. And that's a power that maybe I'll talk about in a future video, just in terms of like self-betterment and changing your outlook on life by means of self-discovery and training and learning, educating yourself, things like that. Man, I'm stumbling over my words a lot here. But it reminded me where this game, in such a strange way, reminded me where I've been and how bad things really can get, and how nothing that life throws at you after you've survived something like that is really ever going to push you back into that mode unless you allow it to. So I played through this game and I was annoyed at how much it sucked. But at the same time, the meaning that I gave it in my head gave this game a unique purpose. So I beat the Callisto Protocol. And then I beat the trials that I was facing within myself alongside that. And I think that in a weird way, I grew a lot with this game. Are you gonna have that experience? Hopefully not. But I will say, this game is always gonna hold a very special place in my heart because of what I've been able to rationalize and cope with while playing it. A lot of you might have a game like that, where you were going through just a very hard point in your life. Maybe it was even like an anime or TV series that just helped you cope and rationalize and reorganize things in your head in a way that made sense to you. And that's what the Callisto Protocol has done for me. I don't think every game has to be a 10 out of 10. I don't think that every game can be a 10 out of 10. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think we've well past the point where games are ever going to live up to their hype. At this point, we're buying a lot of marketing, unless we're buying The Legend of Zelda or something of that nature, right? Like games like that are always going to be badass top tier. But when it comes to the random drops like Callisto Protocol, I think we got to be careful about buying the hype and really do our research and maybe not do these day one buys that everyone keeps doing, including myself. Because at the end of the day, like we're kind of allowing the industry to go in this direction of selling us a trailer. But even if we're doing that, even if we're paying full price like me, I think as long as a game is able to help you in some way or just be there for you when you need some kind of entertainment that takes you outside yourself, I think it's done its job as a piece of media. I really do. And that can go with anything, right? Music, movies. It's just how we look at them, right? So anyway, guys, enough of my emotional rant. I'm gonna get lost and I might cry if I keep talking about this, but I want to thank you all so much for sticking around and supporting this channel. There's not a lot of you here at all, but to me, I never expected anyone to watch these videos and really get much out of them other than like, I don't know, a thumbs up or something. But a lot of people have really reached out to me and been inspired by some of the things I've done and said, and I'm hoping to do more of that going forward. Again, if you came here from a Pokemon video or an unboxing video, some of these topics might be way over your head or just alienate you completely, and I apologize for that. But when I initially started this channel, I wanted it to be about, gaming, things that people like myself that are somewhat introverted gravitate towards as a source of, I don't know, like a coping skill, right? Like these are things that we gravitate towards because they make us feel okay sometimes, right? Like as super introverts, especially nowadays and in this modern world that can be so overwhelming just in itself. A lot of us just need something that is there, that is tangible, that we can latch onto and find ourselves existing in, like a video game. But I think outside of that, there's a lot to be said for bettering yourself. And I think that if I had stayed in the mode of trying to exist completely in video games, like I've done in the past, or completely in other dark, addicting types of scenarios, then I never would have become the person I am today. I'd like to talk more on this channel about things that I've done to better myself, the biggest of which being fitness and training, which is not going to be talks about how you can be the biggest bro in the gym, because while that's attractive and something that we see a lot on social media today, it's not what's going to help you in life. You know, there is a way that you can better yourself that allows you to apply those same principles into all your affairs, which will make you happier and just make you a better person, make you more capable of maintaining relationships that are meaningful, and make you find real purpose in this real world that we live in with your real life avatar. And that's what I hope to inspire on this channel here. If you guys are on board with that and you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Or if you just want to peek every now and then and see what I've been up to, that's fine too. This has been a very emotional video for me. I'm almost out of breath. Again, I like to freestyle my stuff. I apologize if this seemed like it was all over the place, but I really appreciate you guys all being here. I really do. It means more than I can even describe. Going forward, got to make myself laugh so I can get back into character here. Going forward, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about High on Life, which is another game that just dropped recently on the Game Pass, which is, again, not a Nintendo game, but there's not a lot of Nintendo games coming out in the near future that I want to speak on, and there's a ton of games that are third-party, either PC or I don't have a PlayStation, but either on the PC or on the Xbox that are really great, awesome games that I haven't had a chance to talk about on this channel. So one of the games that I'd like to talk about going forward is High on Life, which again, you can find plenty of reviews for, but I'm sure to have a very unique opinion on that as well. But also, if you guys have any suggestions for things you'd like to see in terms of like how to build some sort of physique, I'm there for you. Would love to do a video like that. I think the next thing will focus mainly on nutrition as far as my fitness and self-betterment videos go. But yeah, guys, stay tuned if you'd like more content like that. And thank you for watching my video, guys. I'm going to wrap it up before I cry. Have a blessed evening.